Hello, welcome back to Coffee with Kelly, episode 3. Today I have a special guest with me. It's my first time on camera, so I'm a little bit nervous and excited. And so is my mom. So instead of coffee today, we are actually drinking a little bit of alcohol. It's one of our faves, Crown Royal Blackberry mixed with a little bit of ginger ale. And hopefully it'll take the tension out of our bones that we're feeling sitting here on camera. So this is my mom, the big B. Her name is Betty. She goes by Beth in corporate world. Mom, say hi.
Hi.
My mom, if you know me, you know that my mom is one of the closest people to me. You also know that, along with lots of love and care, we also had a lot of downs, more attitude, clashing, and I think all of that just means family in general. Mom,
Yes.
before we get into the deep stuff, we're going to just start by getting to know a little bit about you.
Okay.
We don't have to talk about your age because she doesn't like to do that. But we all know because everybody says she doesn't look her age, and I love that for her. I don't think I'm going to be following in her footsteps, but, it is what it is.
Sure you are.
Girl. Mom, what's one thing people don't know about you as a mom?
Um, that I was a single mom for
Hmm.
most of it.
I would like to say that the people who know me, my brother, and my sister know that one thing they do know about my mom is that she don't play that shit. If you had to describe your motherhood journey in 3 words, what would they be?
Um, First it would be proud. Second it would be frustrated. Lots of frustration.
Hmm.
Having twins, specifically. And three would be still working on it because I'm still
We're still working
actively a
on
mom.
it. We're still working on it. Okay, Mom, is there a favorite memory of us when I was little?
Um, Probably it was wonderful to see the twins grow up like that, and the big sister being
Mhm.
the big sister that she was.
Mhm.
She was like their second mom,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
She really was. Um, and
Yeah. I think this is the nice way of her saying that it was hard.
yeah,
It was hard.
yes, it was.
It was hard. I
It
think
was like, yeah, I mean, your first year, the twins I'm
mhm.
talking about, I didn't eat and sleep for a year.
Yeah.
Literally. Yep.
Yeah. I was
Hmm.
hungry.
Yeah. Yes, she was very hungry.
um Mom, what was the hardest part about raising me?
Raising you.
You can take your time
Um,
with that.
oh, just that, you were such a social butterfly. You couldn't just stop talking in school, you know, or at home. You were active, very active. You were sweet. You were sweet too. But yeah, that's you had your social butterfly self where you talked about everything and everyone,
Yikes.
whether it was the right time or the wrong time. And look where I got you. You got a podcast. Very
That's
good. I'm very
me.
proud. Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you learned about yourself looking back on motherhood? Is there anything you learned about yourself?
Oh gosh, just about everything because motherhood entails a little bit of everything.
Mhm.
You know, um, that I was resilient for
That's a
sure,
good one.
for sure.
That's a good one.
Um, I could have given up a lot of times,
Mhm.
you know, but I didn't. So I definitely learned,
Yeah.
that I could do a lot of things.
Right.
I sure can.
Right. I agree. I agree. Is there anything you wish you could go back and do differently? Not out of regret, but out of wisdom?
For motherhood or in
Anything
general?
in general.
Well, there's a lot of things. Definitely a lot of things. I definitely regret not going to college.
Mm.
That was my very first regret. And then,
Is there something you wanted to do in specific in college?
no, and that's why I didn't go because I really didn't know what I
Mm.
wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like nothing in specific, but college does that to you.
Mm.
You go
I
in there,
think
you
it
take all your
can.
courses, and then you kind of,
Mhm.
guide you, or you have guidance from somebody, hopefully,
Yeah.
at the school, and then you learn what you want to do with the rest of your life. And I
Mhm.
didn't. I went to a business school. I did do
Okay.
that, and then I just stayed in the business
World.
world.
Mhm.
Yeah, banking, financial
Mm.
um, world, and that was that. That was my biggest regret, really. And then motherhood, since it is Mother's Day,
Mhm.
I think my biggest regret was, or I could do differently, not regret, not I could do differently was be more patient.
That's a good one.
Back then, we didn't have internet, where I could have learned a lot of things that, you
That we
kids,
all went through, yeah.
that you
We
guys,
were
now the
experiencing.
young,
Yeah.
mothers could do, and,
Yeah.
get help from there. We didn't. We had to figure it out
Figure
on
it
our
out.
own as we
Yeah.
went along.
Yeah, exactly. And life wasn't always the easiest, and with the personal hardships, financially, personally, relationship wise, um, all there were so many things crumbling down at the same time for so long that it had to have been hard to kind of take a second to even
Right.
think twice about.
Exactly. I had no time
Yeah,
to think.
yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one. Okay, Mom, if there's
Yes.
any year you could go back to, what would it be? Meaning, you were born in the 60s, so maybe not 60s, but
Uh-huh.
70s, 80s, 90s.
That I could go back to?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Probably the 80s,
Oh,
because,
damn.
they're a big blur. And I'd like to go back and remember and try to remember what I did. Because, yeah, the 80s
Damn.
are a big blur. It was that era,
Mm.
a lot of partying
That was
for
a wild
children.
era. That was
So,
a
yeah,
wild
I would like
era.
to go back to the 80s and really, um,
How old were you in the 80s?
18. I was of age. 18 to
Damn.
21. That was,
Mm-hmm.
um,
That's the prime
yeah, prime.
age.
And, yeah, that would go back definitely to the 80s there,
Mm-hmm.
Before children, and learn a little more, and hopefully not do a lot of things I did.
What's one song you think of when you think of your partying years?
Um,
Like one song that was like your favorite party time.
Gosh, there was so many. It was the disco scene.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That era, it was just so many. Donna Summer,
Oh, Donna Summer was
Yes,
good.
I know.
Did they play a lot of that when
Oh
you went
yeah.
out?
Oh yes. Yes. Hmm.
Mm.
Works hard for the money,
Mm. Mm.
so
What's
hard
that
for
called?
the money. Um, I forgot. Because it's a blur. That was from the album of the Four Seasons. It was called The Four Seasons
Mm.
of Love, I think.
Damn.
That was from that album.
And that was your girl?
Yeah. Yeah, we partied a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Mom, on a deeper level, what is one thing you had to unlearn from your upbringing?
What do you mean? Unlearn.
So, you know how when we grow up with our parents, we learn things right? Because you do as you see kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's one thing as you got older that you realized, maybe that shit wasn't normal, or maybe I shouldn't do that just because that's what I saw growing up? Is there anything you can think of off the top of your
That I
head?
had to unlearn. No,
Yeah.
I pretty much um, kept up with the cycle, whether it was good or bad. I sure
Yeah.
did. I
Yeah.
sure did. And that's one thing I try to instill in the three of you,
Yeah.
that break the
Yeah.
cycle.
Yeah. Is there one thing you wish that mama would have done better at, or is there one thing you wish that something that she could have done different?
Um,
Either good or bad.
no, I don't know. She was such a hard worker.
Mhm.
She really did. She worked a lot outside the house, of course, making it not work inside the house, which I had
Mhm.
to do. Being the only girl and three brothers,
Mhm.
I had to cook after school.
Yeah.
I had to clean. Well, I didn't have to clean, but I had to clean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that you having to start those things at a young age and then getting older, that made you, like, in hindsight, more frustrated, feeling like you had to still do everything by yourself?
Um, Maybe. I never really thought about it, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a long time.
And you're still doing
Literally
it.
since like 10. I think I started cooking at 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're still doing it.
Yeah. Well, not so much anymore by myself, but
Yeah.
I mean, I do it.
We know. Mhm. If you're looking for her, she's outside. She
Oh
won't
yeah,
be
my
inside.
gardening, yes.
um, is there anything that you would suggest to the younger girls who have to start young, taking care of? Because you weren't even the oldest. You were the
No.
only girl,
Yeah, and I was the number 3
and you
out
were
of
number
4.
3. Yeah. And at number 3, you were already taking care of the household.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. I mean, I had to.
Was that the times? Like, is that what that looked like? I mean, I don't know. I feel
No.
like there's a lot of girls, young girls who still, I mean, even boys who have to pick up wherever the parents have left off.
I don't think so. I mean, none of my friends had to do it.
Hmm.
Well, a lot of them had the stay-at-home moms too.
Oh, okay. And mama
Not all
didn't.
of them,
Mama
but
worked.
most of them. Yeah, most of them did. And so I would go to their house, and watch the mom do the cooking every day after
Mm,
school.
yeah, and
Yeah,
mama worked.
and she worked. My mom worked nights. That was the problem.
Mm,
And then my dad worked days, but he didn't do anything.
no. Okay.
He was a big couch potato.
That
He
makes
just came
sense.
home and watched TV. He ate, and he was a breadwinner, and that was all.
Ina,
Yeah.
that's it.
Well, he did the stuff outside. He cut the grass, and he did all that. Yes. And if he
Okay.
had to cook, he did.
Yeah.
But
But
why
he didn't want
But
to.
I had to. Yeah, I had to. I would come
Mm.
home from school, start dinner, then do my homework,
And then go back to finish dinner.
and then no, usually it was done. Yeah, then we eat. Yeah, we would eat, and then I mean after that, if my father came home, that's when I went out and played. Then I would go outside and play. I
Okay.
did have that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but everything had to be done first.
Yeah. Do you feel like your upbringing with your father and mama played a role in what your relationships looked like moving forward, like as you got older?
Yes, definitely.
That's something you've thought about before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was definitely dysfunctional. Like I
Yeah.
said, try to break the cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's any advice you would give to your younger self when it comes to breaking the cycle, what would you tell yourself? Have you thought about it?
Not really. I mean, I thought about it later. You mean, yeah, later, like, have more patience, for sure. Um,
What about when it comes to choosing the type of partners that you have?
what about it?
what would you tell your younger self if you knew
Um,
better?
y- oh yeah, for sure. you know, get to know them a little better before you get serious.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, honestly, you're gonna tell a teenager that,
Right.
even like an 18-year-old that he's in college.
Mom, remember when you tried to tell me that?
Yeah.
Girl, bye. Girl, bye. That's the love of my life. And then it wasn't.
Yes.
Um, that was a good answer.
Mm.
My mom was very unprepared. She's very prepared. Okay, Mom. How did a wife and a mother at the same time challenge you or teach you? I do think that patience was lacked, but I think it also goes back to what we talked about as far as trying to unlearn things where you like subconsciously don't even realize that these habits and thought process need to be unlearned first. But I think, like I said, you do as you see. So it just kind of comes as second nature to
Right.
react in certain ways that,
Right.
that you
I didn't
react.
know any other way. Like I
Right.
said, no internet. Well, now, and I see in the internet, it's like, wow, if I would have
Hmm.
just had this.
Like other
Hmm.
resources
Yeah.
available
Hmm.
or known to mankind,
Hmm.
um, I think it would have been. And
Yeah.
with some people, there are people who grow older without the internet and they just didn't like the way it made them feel. So they tried to do things different, where you have other people that you're like, that doesn't exist. So this is the way it's supposed to go,
Right.
I think. And so this is just how I'm going to do it. And then you don't learn until much later on, after you have time to sit back by yourself and think
Yes.
about things
And
on a
say,
deeper
I could have
level.
done that. I could have done this. I shouldn't have done that.
Well, I also think because as you get older, you start wondering why things played out the way they did, and so it starts to, people like who actually like give a fuck, they start to think like, okay, like there's something wrong here. Like I need to figure it out. I need to, like, on a deeper level, there's a disconnect that's happening. I need to figure it out. And I think that's what happened in your case for a lot of situations.
Yes.
That
Yes.
nothing was making
Yes.
sense.
And that you're right. Right. And I guess, and a lot of times I just didn't have the time to
Mhm.
think about it. I was so busy, you know,
This damn dog.
with the full-time job, sometimes a second job. At Christmas time, I would take a second job,
Mhm. Mhm.
and the raising of the three kids
Yeah.
by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and having to pay all the bills.
Yeah.
Yeah, so who had time for
Yeah.
that? And I feel like even if we did have internet, like who had time?
Who? Yeah.
I would have. I don't know. It could have. Maybe I could have. Maybe I couldn't have. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I think there were a lot of times that you tried to make sense of things that just didn't make sense. Like like your marriage
Mhm.
for many years. I think you did have a lot of patience. I think you
Well, yeah, that was just, even though he was an alcoholic,
Mhm.
and I literally didn't even think that. And then later on, I was like, wow, he was an alcoholic the whole time, even
Yeah.
when we were dating. Like he was, and I
The
never even
signs
knew
were
because,
there. Yeah.
I didn't grow up around that, and I was so naive to alcoholism,
Mm.
and I did not know until one day I was like, you know what? I don't think this is normal.
Yeah.
To myself, I don't think he's supposed to be drinking like that.
Right.
I really didn't know. And then when I realized it, and then that's when,
And the consistency
yeah,
of it, of the
yes, yes. And I was
constant.
like, I don't think it's supposed to be this way. And I talked to him about it because I did. And he wouldn't stop. He was like, no, I'm not stopping. So we went on for a few more years. I
Yeah.
gave him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And then when he didn't stop,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I took action,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I knew that was not right.
Right. Was there anybody else in our family that was an alcoholic early on when you were younger?
Oh yeah, I
Okay.
had an uncle. Well, two uncles. My mom's my mom's brothers.
Okay.
Well, actually, and some of my father's sisters,
Mm-hmm.
they were alcoholics. But I didn't grow up around them. They were
Okay.
all in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
But my uncles, they did, and I remember, especially my one, he was an alcoholic. He lived with us for a little while. So I saw that, and I
Okay.
was like, wow, I knew.
Okay.
So yeah, I knew that, but somehow. Isn't that weird? Now I'm thinking about it. Isn't that
Mm-hmm.
weird how, and I was like maybe 16, 17 when he lived with us. And then when I got married, and I was like, well, I don't think he's supposed to drink that way. I don't know. Maybe it made a difference because my ex-husband was younger and he was
Yeah.
older man.
Right.
I don't
So
know.
it
So I
seemed
didn't think
like
I,
more normal.
yeah, when
Yeah.
they're young or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I never thought about that just right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's usually how that works out when you're asked or when you're randomly thinking about
Like,
something and trying to connect the dots. Yeah. Yeah. So, going back to how being a wife and a mom challenged you, do you feel like it challenged you more than it taught you? Or would you say a little bit of equal both?
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was ups and downs, yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
Taught me
If you had to go back, would you?
to my marriage.
No. To the decisions that were made leading up to marriage
And
and like
divorce.
sticking it out.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then divorce.
Maybe. Maybe. It probably wouldn't have lasted as long as
Yeah,
it did.
agreed. 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 I also think that maybe you tried to stick it out as long as you did because of, the kids, me and Raymond, and
Oh, the kids, finances.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the security, the
Hmm.
stability, it felt a little bit,
Yeah.
but the emotional trauma it caused
Hmm.
was beyond,
Yeah.
I think, repairable.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure.
Do you think you've healed,
Um.
or do you find yourself triggered a little bit?
No. I think I've healed. It's been a while. It's
Yeah.
been a long time now
Yeah.
since the divorce. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I helped me out in the following relationships.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, no, I'm not taking that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not happening.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. I agree. When you think back to your children in their teenage years or early teenage years, is there a genre of music that brings you back to our teenage years?
um, yeah, when I hear it on the radio, not radio, but yeah, radio,
Mhm.
or on TV, I guess it's the '90s. That
Mhm.
music,
Mhm.
whatever it was called.
The 90s. It's like 90s pop, early 2000s.
Yes, yes.
Is there a specific summer that you recall that we brought you hell?
Um,
I feel like when I say we brought you hell, like this is not including Jillian because she was the angel child.
she
So.
really was. She really was. Um, I don't know. Probably, it had to be middle school because it was horrible. And that goes for all.
Yeah.
Middle schoolers are just finding out their way. They're finding their way, what they want
Yeah.
to do, who they want to be.
Yeah.
So
We're
I wasn't the
testing.
only one
We're
for sure.
testing limits.
But yeah, they
I
tested
take that back.
limits.
Raymond was testing limits far, far
For
sooner than middle
yes,
school.
he was, and far beyond those
Mhm.
limits. But yeah, you guys had that first summer. We turned 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get home, you got a bunch of kids in the pool. Yeah, partying at the house.
Shout out to my homies who watched me get my
And
ass
there I was
beat.
knocking out their doors, their mamas.
Shout
Knock,
out.
knock, knock. Yeah.
Shout out to my
Your
girls
kid
who
was
watched
in
me
my
get my ass
pool.
beat. Yeah, I'd say, yep, there was definitely a summer in specific. We definitely brought you hell. I would say the genre of that summer was definitely a lot of reggaeton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the vibe. Mom, Is there any questions that you would have for me that you ever thought of but didn't ask? That come to the top of your head. If not, no.
You know, yeah, I'm very outspoken. If I got something to say,
We
I'm going to
know,
tell you.
girl.
I'm going to ask you, and
We know, girl.
yeah, not so much anymore. Because you're your own person now.
Yeah.
You have a partner, you have your daughter, you have your own home. You know, I ain't got nothing to do with that anymore.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I really don't. I mean, unless you're getting hurt
Yeah.
or my grandbaby's getting hurt, then
Yeah.
I step in. But I try to,
Mind your business.
yeah, I mind my business, and
That's one
I
thing
let
I
you live
always
your
tell
life.
people. I always tell people that.
Mhm.
My mom just minds her fucking business. That ain't her business. She stay the fuck out of it.
Mhm.
Unless she really needs to step in.
Yeah, I try to do that.
Yeah. And it's very appreciated because I know a
You know,
lot of
and mom did the
moms.
same thing with me. She didn't step in
Yeah.
unless she really needed to.
Yeah.
She always said, "Oh, you know what you're doing."
Yeah. And I really appreciate that because I know a lot of moms that overstep and
Yeah,
cross
no.
boundaries and don't mind their fucking business when we're grown and can make our own choices and our own decisions. I personally love that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
Mom, can I tell you something I didn't understand back then, but I do now?
Okay.
Mom, are you going to cry?
I am.
What I like to tell you that I didn't understand back then, but I do now, is that I didn't understand how hard it was for all of the above in your relationships, in your motherhood, in your upbringing, and a lot of it made sense for us.
For us or just you?
For all of us. A lot of it made sense. Even if some of us, meaning your other children, are not ready to accept it, we all understand.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry that it was so hard for you growing up because you deserved a mom and a dad who hugged you, who loved you, and told you that they loved you. And even though we grew up almost the same way, I understand that you do as you see. And so emotionally, if it's hard for you to show emotion, it's not going to be easy to show affection. Physically, mentally, emotionally, we grew up knowing that our mom loved us. That was never a question. But did we always physically feel it? No. And so I'm sorry that it was so hard for you.
Oh, thank you.
And you deserved a mom and a dad. Shout out to mama because my grandmother is a very strong woman who has gone through her own trials and tribulations and traumas and unfortunately didn't know how to not pass them down. My grandfather was the same way. And even though my grandmother was the most stable parent for you, who took care of you, who provided for you, the guidance that was needed wasn't always there, and
Correct.
it was
Correct.
very,
Correct.
it became very prominent and obvious.
Yeah. And then even though, you know, she worked hard to give us a private school education, we went to Catholic school, all of us. Um, Not even, you know, sometimes the nuns helped out a little bit, you know, and that was always, you know, special for me.
Yeah.
But, you know, they really didn't get involved. It was like, that's a family thing.
That's a
you
family
work it out.
matter.
That's how it was back then.
Where now they
Now
all up
they're
in your shit. They'll call
they
CPS
are.
real quick. Real quick. They'll
Uh-huh.
take your kids. Yes, I believe that you were and your brothers were worthy of love and affection and attention, and not just from your parents, but from the future you, the teenage you who followed in the footsteps of boys who didn't know how to treat you or love you or show you how to be loved. And moving forward into marriage, into children, and then into
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think,
one thing I have to say that my husband, Manny,
mm-hmm,
he was one who showed me love. He was
okay,
the one. Too
mm-hmm,
bad he was an alcoholic.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, but he was the one who truly loved me and
yeah,
showed me.
yeah.
So shout out to Manny.
Shout out, shout out to you, Daddy. Do you feel like him essentially choosing the alcohol over his marriage, do you feel like that at any point made you feel less than or not appreciated or not
Um,
worthy?
no,
Good for you.
just made me mad.
Yeah.
But
Pissed you
no,
off.
I
Yeah.
didn't
Good
feel
for
any
you.
less worthy.
Good for
Yeah.
you.
No, I knew who I was and what I
Yeah.
could do, but no, it just made me mad.
Good for you.
Hmm.
Is there anything you would say to your oldest, to Jill, to Gia, that you wish you would have said when she was young? Jillian saw a lot of.
Yeah,
She
she
saw
was
a lot.
older. She was a lot older than the twins. So
Yeah.
she saw, like I said, she was the second mother.
Yeah.
Like, and I have to say the story because I always say it. Do you know which one it is?
I don't know. We'll find out.
You do, the story. How when she was, I think she was in first grade,
Mm-hmm.
and you guys were just born.
Mm-hmm.
She was in first grade, and I guess in the middle of the night, you guys would wake up, and I heard the baby screaming, and I was like, always jump up and grab the baby that's screaming, and then look at the other crib and make sure that one's quiet, so I could feed one and then go to the next one later. Well, the other baby wasn't in the crib. Yeah, the other baby was in the crib, and I freaked out. And of course, and I'm with the one in my hand. I'm going around. I went to Jillian's her bedroom, first grade, on a school night. She warmed up the bottle and was feeding the other baby. She didn't want to wake me up. She was independent enough at that age
Yeah.
to do that for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Gia.
Yes, Jillian.
Is there anything you would say to her now that you haven't been able to say that you wish you would have said to her?
Oh, I'm sorry for all the stuff you saw.
Sometimes we don't need any recourse action. Sometimes it just feels good to just acknowledge the things that we've been through and know that that you're not blind or that you haven't blinded yourself to the things that we've seen or felt or heard. I think it's important for Jill to hear that, especially because she saw so much.
Yes.
And felt so much. And I think a lot of that has, carried her into, a lot of her decisions that she's made relationship-wise or even affection-wise into her motherhood. And like you said, I'm proud of you. We're all proud of you, even if it doesn't feel like it. But I think that us coming into motherhood, we take so much of you with us into motherhood. For me, it's not a secret. Me and my sister have two very different parenting styles. I definitely carry the trait from my mom where I don't play that shit. Jillian definitely carries the trait, I feel, of the way you are with your grandchildren. It is very soft and it's okay. You want that? Yeah, you can have that. I also think that Jillian naturally is a very soft person.
Yes. Yes.
Her persona, her emotions are very sensitive, and when upset, very heightened, like yourself.
Yep.
So I think each of us, including my brother, have taken different traits of our mom with us into our parenting, our parenthoods. And some things we choose not to take, and other things we choose to take, and other things come just as my mom did. You know, you do as you see, and then you have to learn to unlearn them whenever you figure out that, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I probably shouldn't have lost my shit like that. I definitely think that I could myself use a lot of learning tactics to have a little bit more patience. Um, you know, my mom has watched me lose my shit a few times where she's like, damn, you could have calmed the fuck down. You didn't have to do all that. Um, and I think motherhood doesn't stop. You don't stop learning.
That's
Even
true.
even when you get older, even when your kids are adults, you don't stop learning as long as you're open to transparency and honesty and understanding that not all of us are going to be the same. We're not all of us are going to agree on certain parenting styles, our motherhood, our fatherhood.
You know, because every child is different too.
Mhm.
You have to take that into consideration.
Mhm. I think I've given my mom a lot to reflect on.
Yes. And you needed some
Um
tissue.
oh yeah, I didn't have any tissues here. Shoot. My bad, girlfriend. Did I mess up your makeup?
I don't know. You tell me.
No. Well, I don't have my glasses on, but no. Um, Mom, did you have, when you had kids, your first, and then you went on to have your second pregnancy with two, so three. Do you feel like you were in constant survival mode?
Um, for the twins, yes. The first one, no, because I had mom
Okay.
with the first
You
one.
had my
I
grandmother to
had mom.
help you.
And then my
Okay.
mom moved to Puerto Rico. She retired and went to Puerto Rico when I had, well, she went to take care of her mom.
Mhm.
Um, and then I was alone. So, yes, I was in survival mode.
Yeah.
I was literally alone.
Yeah.
I mean, thanks to my brother Raymond and his wife.
Shout out to Theo Raymond.
That helped me out because they were still, in Newark.
Okay.
Um, and then friends,
Yeah.
just a couple.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all we need is
Yeah.
just. What do you think has helped us stay close, even though we've had a lot of disagreements, arguments, fights?
Well, I think you being a mother, when you became a mother,
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a point where
Yeah.
we started, being close.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
What do you think? Where's the time?
I think the thing that helped me um stay close and or grow close and or stay close was when I realized that you were becoming more transparent and understanding. I think there were a lot of things that you didn't understand about how our upbringing, what it did to us, that in some parts helped me grow resentment versus understanding. And then once I started realizing our conversations were a little different, I felt like they were more transparent about things that you went through or felt. And then also motherhood, you know. I felt like once I started feeling like you were not absent minded to things that happened, that's when I felt like I could start to understand more. Also, getting older and talking to mama more. Um, some of the things that she would talk about that I would be like, oh, that makes sense. Like without her knowing that I'm analyzing what she's saying, and that makes a lot of sense. Why she is the way she is, or why you were the way that you were. Getting older, being around my uncles and watching them and listening to them. Some things good, some things bad. You know, I feel like, set an example for what I wanted and what I didn't want.
Okay.
And same for you. Some things I didn't want and some things I wanted. For example, I knew I knew that I never wanted to be with somebody who was an alcoholic or drug addict or
I'm glad.
yeah. I knew I never wanted to be in a relationship that consisted of a lot of verbal or violent household. I knew that wasn't what I wanted. Not just for myself, but especially going into motherhood. Um,
Right.
you know,
Right.
Even in my 30s, those things are or can be a trigger for me. And I also feel like, to preface that, I feel like once we get of age, we make our own decisions. So at some point, our upbringing no longer is an excuse for the decisions that we choose to make.
Correct. Right.
So, we can either choose to heal from them or we can choose to keep using them as an excuse
Yeah.
as to why we are the way that we are or do the things that we do. But at some point, we have now become an adult and we make our own choices and our own decisions, like big
And you
boys
break the
and big
cycle.
girls. You can either choose to break the cycle or you don't. Everything that you do has a consequence to it, whether it's good or it's bad. Once you come of age, you learn that, or you don't.
Right.
I feel like we've touched on so much. Is there anything that you would say to mama if you had the chance and she wasn't in the state that she is today? Have you ever thought about it? It's okay.
I have so many things.
Good things or bad things?
Um,
Or a little bit of both?
but then she already knows. I've told her the good things. I don't think I've ever told her the bad things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you feel like you and mama couldn't have that type of transparency in your relationship?
Well, we did, as I got older. We did a little bit, but not enough,
Okay.
for sure.
That's fair.
Mhm.
That's fair. What's one good thing you would say to mama today that you wish that you wish you would have or could have said to her, thinking or reflecting back from your childhood into motherhood into today?
I don't know. Probably got my resilience from her,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Definitely.
I think we've all told her thank you for the education that she
Okay.
gave us.
Yeah.
She paid for.
Yeah.
She worked hard to pay those Catholic schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've told her all the good stuff. We just never told her the resentment we had. We probably just
And you
out
do
of
feel
respect,
you have yes, okay. So it's out of
that
respect.
we just don't do that.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's disrespectful to or do you think that you would feel disrespected if your children spoke to you about the resentments they had?
Mm, no, I
Today
wouldn't.
you wouldn't.
No, today I would not.
Because there definitely was a time where I think all three of us felt like we can't say certain things
Yeah.
to her. I also think, this is my own thought, that for a long time we thought that if we wanted to talk about those things, either maybe you wouldn't recall them as the way we saw it, from our eyes, or our ears, or B, maybe it was like it could be a trigger for you where you don't want to talk about it.
Mm, the times that you and even Julian
Yeah.
have told me some resentments, I didn't recall them
Yeah.
like as you did.
Yeah.
A lot of them, I did not recall them.
Do you feel like because most of them were due to a lot of traumatic events that took place. Do you feel like it's because you kind of like shoved them so far to the back of your head, I don't even want to think about that shit ever again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely makes sense. So you do feel like there were some resentments from your upbringing with mama. I can only assume your father.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe took place, the resentments grew from a place at the hands of your father.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think you've healed from those things?
Do you think what?
You've healed from those things?
Um, yeah, mostly yes.
Okay.
Yes. I know some things probably will never heal.
Yeah. Sometimes they
And
don't.
my brothers say the same thing. 'Cause
Sometimes
we've
they
talked
don't.
about it.
Okay. Sometimes they don't. You learn to, you don't get over it, you just get through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you learned forgiveness
Yes.
for
You
your
have to.
father also?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In order to keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes people stay stuck in moments and times and situations, and it shows. It shows in their everyday lives. It shows in the way they treat people. It shows in the way they talk to people. Just like putting it out there. We know that we don't all have the perfect relationship. Some relationships are distant. Other relationships are not. Other relationships are complicated. We're not always going to agree. We've never always agreed, any of us, on certain ways of living. You know, who we are, who we want to be. One thing that the three of us all know is that we are all bonded, and we're bonded to you. Any final words, Mom?
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy
to
Mother's
all the
Day.
mothers out there.
Shout out to my mama. If there's one word I would describe my mom, it would be fierce. Shout out to my mama. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for showing up, not just for the podcast, but for me. I know that there are a lot of moments that you don't wish for me. A lot of times that you wish you could take back or rewind and kind of do over.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that if we did that, it wouldn't have made you who you are and who you were. And it wouldn't have made us who we are. I think that all three of your children have learned to take care of themselves.
Oh, good.
For all of those reasons above, whether we all like it or not, you know, whether we have felt not supported in different times, in heavy moments, at the end of it, the bond that we share with you is because you had us learn on our own. And I have zero resentment for that. Our story isn't perfect, but it's ours.
Who's his?
It's ours. Love your family. You never know what tomorrow brings. Mom, thanks again for joining me. This episode stirred something in you. If it's going to be anything, I urge you to hug your mom, love your mom, kiss your mom.
Bye.
See you on the next episode.